Comedian Louis C.K. has a great bit about these thoughts that we all have in our head about the things that we all know to be good and right, and these other things that we think that we know are wrong, but we still think them. And he calls it, of course, but maybe. And I'm reminded of this bit very often when I talk to people about their work lives. I go into the clients that we talk to, I go into these big organizations, talk to people about what's going on inside their organizations. Of course, but maybe. I'll give you an example. So for instance, of course, we need conference calls and email and meetings for teams to get things done. Of course. But maybe if we're spending 90% of our time coordinating calendars and digging out of our inbox and listening to hold music while we wait to see if somebody's going to dial in for the call, and only 10% of our time, on nights and weekends actually doing the work, then maybe the way that we're working together isn't working. Of course not. Of course people need to meet and gather to get on the same page about things. Of course people need to coordinate who's going to do what, when it's going to get done, and what's going to get done. Of course. But maybe if sometimes we feel like we'd be better off or more productive working alone for a week inside of a windowless broom closet instead of working together with our teammates, then maybe we need a different way of working. So that's the kind of thing that I think about. And what it leads me to believe is that work doesn't work. For most people inside of most organizations, work doesn't work. The way that we organize ourselves makes it harder for us to get our work done instead of easier. The way that we make decisions slows us down when it should be speeding us up. The way that we coordinate and collaborate, communicate with our team members makes us feel like we'd be better off working by ourselves than working together. Work doesn't work. And so the reason why I think this is important is because I think so many people are feeling this inside of so many organizations that something has to change. And I believe that something is changing. I believe that we're on the verge of a revolution in the way that we work, in the way that people work. And some companies who are going to embrace this, who lead this new way of working, are going to succeed and thrive. And some companies are already doing that. And other companies who either ignore it or resist it are going to fail and go away. So that's why I think this is important. And the second thing that I want you all to take away, or hope that you'll take away from this talk tonight, is just a few things to wrap your head around. What are these changes? What is this new way of working? And what are some very specific things that you can take back to your work lives starting tomorrow with your teams to change the way that you work? So a little background on this. So what's behind this? What's driving this change? Well, it starts with realizing that we live in a time that is defined by exponential change, driven primarily by exponential technological change. Moore's law, the amount of computing power you can squeeze onto a chip and how that's invaded and taken over every aspect of our life. Case in point, this picture that you see on the screen here, this is a 5 megabyte hard drive in the year 1954. If I'd wanted to email you this, if I'd wanted to send you this keynote file that I'm using right now, I would have needed to fill an entire cargo plane with these 5 megabyte hard drives to get it to you. That kind of change, and that technological change, exponential change, has transformed our world. It's making it easier than ever for companies to come into being and for companies to reach incredible scale very, very quickly. So everything's awesome, right? We're able to do all these amazing things. I'm a big fan of Louis C.K., in case you didn't know. So we're able to do these amazing things, and all these companies that we hear about are doing amazing things. Companies like Tesla and Google and Amazon and Facebook and on and on. Wow, isn't this world that we live in so incredible? And while that's true, at the same time, for most people, inside of most organizations, it doesn't feel that way. That's not their experience. Their companies and their work lives aren't getting to participate in this incredible change that's happening. So there are these subset, this special class of companies that the OECD study from last year describes as frontier firms who are unlocking these incredible productivity gains. And then there's everybody else. There are all these other companies who just can't figure out how to reap the benefits of all this possibility. And that's leaving many individuals inside of many organizations feeling very frustrated and disengaged in their work lives. This recent Gallup study, which comes out every year, and the most recent study reaffirmed these statistics, so that only a sad little 13% of employees globally feel engaged at work. The vast majority of people, 63%, are not engaged, and a whopping 24% are actively disengaged at work. And it probably feels familiar if you work inside of a typical organization. Tell me if any of these sound familiar to you. Do you know somebody at work who haggles over the precise wordings of communications, minutes, and resolutions? Do you know somebody at work who refers back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempts to reopen the question of the advisability of that decision? Do you know somebody at work who insists on doing everything through channels and never permits shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions? If these things sound familiar, congratulations, one of your coworkers might have been trained by the CIA in the 1950s in order to sabotage organizations. Those things that I just read you are actually from a manual, a CIA manual, about how people can sabotage organizations. And they're very, very sadly familiar. People actually do this inside of companies that we work in all the time. So it's no wonder that you're feeling a little frustrated at work, right? When somebody does that. So what's behind this is that inside of most organizations, most companies are still using an obsolete operating model that was designed over 100 years ago for a world that no longer exists. And case in point, this org chart that you see in the background here, again, if it looks like every org chart you've ever seen, it was created over 100 years ago for the Pacific Railroad. And org charts haven't changed a bit in over 100 years. This old way of working was very well suited to the industrial age. It was very well suited to a time where you could create incredible amounts of value and incredible amounts of competitive advantage by getting these things right. Working together, bringing together a large group of people working towards some specific purpose. If you were closed with your IP, protected it very carefully, protected your R&D very carefully, if you had very specific controls over who did what and how they did it, and very clear chains of command, and you really focused on the efficiency and maximizing, making tasks very discrete and repeatable over and over again, very predictable, then you could create incredible amounts of value. These are the operating principles that drove that 20th century way of working. And that was very well suited to work living at this end of this spectrum. So this spectrum says certain on this side, uncertain on the other side. Pretty much every task, every kind of work you can imagine lives somewhere along this spectrum. The most routine work, the most certain tasks over here on the left are things that you'd expect, like working on an assembly line or a factory floor or something like that. But it also includes things like basic accounting procedures or drafting a basic legal document, things that we've figured out how to do, and there's a right way to do them. And then on the right side, the uncertain end of the spectrum, are the most complex, the most creative, and the most uncertain, least routine tasks. And on that end, you have things like figuring out how to cure cancer or inventing a self-driving car. But it also includes things like figuring out the best new IT system for a mid-sized corporation. Incredibly uncertain tasks. And these organizations that most companies work in, most companies are optimized for this certain end of the spectrum. And the reason why that's so frustrating and there's so little value to be had there today in the 21st century is because that's what computers are for. That certain routine end of the spectrum. Computers are really good at the most certain tasks. And artificial intelligence and robotics starts with tasks at that end of the spectrum and very steadily is creeping across that spectrum. Now, the good news is that human beings are really, really well suited compared to computers on the most uncertain end of the spectrum, the most creative, the most collaborative aspects of work, right? But again, the organizations we work inside of are optimized for this. It's exactly the wrong way of working, the wrong way of optimizing if you want to enable human beings to tackle very uncertain problems and thrive in an uncertain environment. So, there's a new way of working. If you want to create an operating model, if you want to create an organization where human beings excel in the midst of uncertainty, these are the operating principles you abide by. And they're almost the mirror opposite of what you optimize for if you're optimizing for predictability. It's about openness instead of being closed. It's about being networked instead of hierarchical and controlled. And it's about focusing on learning, optimizing for learning instead of optimizing for efficiency. Still focused on some kind of shared or collective purpose, but we'll talk about in a minute how that purpose needs to evolve as well. So what's exciting to us is that yes, there are companies who are excelling using this new model. And the companies that I rattled off before are examples of that. There are other companies who are doing it as well. But what's most exciting to us at August is figuring out how companies who have been operating by this old model can change to this new model. That's something that is extremely challenging, but we really do believe that it's possible. And it doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen by taking very specific steps and focus on developing specific habits and behaviors in each one of these areas of practice. So to dive in, a few examples, starting off with purpose. So August's purpose is a capable team for every meaningful mission. And purpose statements don't need to be perfect, they don't need to be beautiful, they need to be useful for the people that you're trying to bring together. This is inspiring and engaging to us, and we have found that it also is attracting people like yourselves who are interested in these ideas. And it inspires learning. We're trying to figure out what makes teams capable. It helps direct and help us make decisions about what we should prioritize and what we should invest in. Patagonia has a really great one. Build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to the environmental crisis. Maybe a little bit wordy, but the important thing is that it's ambitious and they're committed to it. Just last year on on Black Friday, the CEO published an open letter. Rather than employing their customers to go out and buy or take advantage of some big sale they had, the CEO is imploring them to go and repair the clothes that they already had. They invest a huge amount of money in enabling their customers to repair things. They train their staff at stores to be able to fix things if you bring things in. They have thousands of guides online showing customers how they can fix things themselves. So they're really committed to this purpose, and it drives decisions about how they operate. And Microsoft. So again, I want to emphasize that these purpose statements don't have to be perfect. They have to be useful. So Microsoft, when they started, was a computer on every desk. Certainly ambitious, certainly clear and specific. Also, they did it. They didn't do it by themselves, and that's another good sign of a good purpose, is that a lot of other people outside the organization could get behind it and work with them towards this goal. But it really was a very driving force for their company and drove immense success for them and positive impact in the world over a long period of time. And last year, when Satya Nadella, their new CEO, took over, he came out with this new vision for the company, which he described as empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Again, maybe a little wordy, maybe not as clear, or maybe a little bit too vague, but I would argue that since he's taken over, they have taken a lot of really successful steps and relatively bold steps compared to what they were doing the years before. Case in point, something like introducing very quickly, revising all their software products to work easily across Apple products and iOS, which is something that they fought like crazy for the 10 years before that. But if you're committed to this, if you really want to empower every person in every organization, then maybe you should be more open-minded about which products or platforms you develop your software for. So, a way to get started, consider these guidelines for crafting a purpose for your organization, whereas a check for the purpose statement that you already have. Is it user customer centric, expressing the impact that you aim to make for others, not what you're trying to do for yourself? It should be brief, it should be clear, jargon free, and easily understood, and it should be ambitious. It should inspire the team to do their best. So that's purpose. Number 2, learning. So learning is really about how your organization's ability to test hypotheses and then to act on what you learn about what's going on. So at August, one of the ways that we do this is that we run our consulting business as if it was an agile software product. And what I mean by that is, first of all, we break all of our projects into 4-week cycles. And all of our projects run on the same calendars, starting and stopping on the same dates, which means that if we need to shuffle resources from one project to another, it makes it a lot easier. And if we have to change course in the midst of a long-term project, we have these built-in checkpoints to take a step back, look at what we're doing, and adjust course. Beyond that 4-week cycle, we break it down even further into 1-week sprints. So every project and every project team works in these 1-week sprints, where on Monday they get together and review all the tasks and who needs to do what and reprioritize their work. And every morning of every day, project teams do a stand-up where they talk about what did you get done, what do you need to get done, where are you blocked, what do you need. Amazon.com, a great example across a lot of these. One of the things that they've done, which is really cool, is they built a platform called Web Lab that just makes it really, really easy for people in their company to run live experiments on Amazon.com with real customers in real time. So it's not some fake, like, pretend universe where they're running experiments. They're actually running real experiments with real customers. They run over 2,000 experiments a year, and these experiments have led to discovering really interesting and valuable new products and services for their platform. And Chipotle, just yesterday, were closed all day because they've been dealing with this food scare. So they shut down every store nationwide for an entire day. They had their CEO webcast into every store, talk to people about their revised health and safety practices, and did a Q&A with everyone. And I think that they deserve some credit for what that says about them as a learning organization, how quickly they've dealt with this issue that they've done, this issue that they've had to confront, and you know, how quickly they were willing to remedy it, take steps to learn from it and to improve. So something that you can do to get started. These 3 questions I love. Take them to any meeting, big or small, where you're gathering with a group of people to reflect on how something went, how a project went, how a deliverable went. Again, big or small, big group, small group, use these 3 questions to guide the conversation. What worked? Where did we get stuck? And what might we do differently? Open. So openness is about how easy is it for anybody who is committed and connected to your purpose to access information and to contribute to that purpose. At August, one of the things that we've done that many of you might already be aware of is we've created a public Google Drive, which is linked to from our website at public.aug.co. And we share all kinds of crazy stuff in there, including like profitability and revenue and our cap table, which of us owns how much of the company, our salaries, these presentations, marketing materials, pretty much everything that we can. The only things that are really off limits right now are our client information, client stuff that clients need us to keep private for their sake. Percolate is a marketing software company based here in New York, has created a really great tool internally that they call Barista, and it's a really simple tool that just collects questions that are coming in mostly from customers and filters them to people who can provide answers. So if a salesperson is out talking to a new customer, gets a question that they don't have an immediate answer to, they put that question into the system. Usually there's a response already in the system, they'll get it back immediately. If not, maybe they wait an hour or so and get back to them very quickly. But this is also a centralized database that gets smarter and smarter over time. So every week the information is gathered, all of the new questions and answers are gathered and then shared across the entire company. And anytime a new person joins the organization, they can refer back to this and dig through and see what kind of information is available in there. Zara, another really interesting example, and a great company on a lot of these fronts. One of the things that Zara does to kind of fuel this fast fashion approach that they have, when customers come back in to return clothes, they have somebody who's asking them about why they're returning the clothes. They capture that data and put it into a centralized system. All that feedback gets filtered to designers. The designers then are empowered to identify trends or themes that are coming back in that feedback, turn those ideas into new designs and new products, and get them back into stores in a matter of weeks. When in most clothing retailers, that process would take months, if not years, to turn around. And as a result, Zara has a 70% turnover in inventory every 2 months, and their customers come in 17 times per year compared to an industry average of only 3 times per year. So one of the ways we like to think about this is just this practice of working in public. Many of you in this room are probably already familiar with these, but if not, you need to get on board. First, just try out some cloud-based documents. Microsoft OneDrive, Box, Google Docs are all great. Collaborative project management tools that allow people within a team, across teams, across the organization to see what's getting done and who owns what. Trello, Asana, Basecamp are good examples of that. And chat applications, and shifting from email, which is a more closed and direct environment, into a more open chat room type environment like Slack or HipChat. Last one, so network. So network is really about connectivity and allowing people to collaborate or connect with other people that they're working with across boundaries, across hierarchy, across seniority, across disciplines, inside and outside the organization. So one of the ways that we're trying to push that at August on 2 fronts with our open compensation model. So one thing is making salaries transparent internally is a way for us to make sure that everyone in our company is empowered to hold the company accountable for making sure that everyone is compensated fairly, and that things like gender biases or there's somebody not getting paid just because they're a worse negotiator, those are harder to do, and the company is more empowered to make sure that those things don't happen if everyone's salaries are open. On top of this, we've created a model, a document, and shared it publicly so that other organizations can take it, adapt it, tweak it, iterate on it, hopefully make it better, and maybe make it something that we can learn from and improve our model based on other people's work. Good example of a company that's thinking about this, Tangerine Bank in Canada, led by their CEO, Peter Aceto, who just came out with a book last year about this way of working, this way of thinking. They have extremely empowered frontline employees who work in their retail branches. These branches are very autonomous, they have a lot of power, and are empowered to make a lot of decisions with very minimal oversight or management. And as a result, they're able to serve 1,800 customers per employee compared to an industry average of only 250 customers per employee, and able to handle over $40,000 in deposits per employee compared to an industry average of just $10,000 per employee. So again, exponential benefits of working in this new way. And Apple Retail in particular, just last week, their head of retail was quoted as saying she thinks of their retail employees not as retail employees, but as executives. And she empowers them, trusts them with that level of responsibility to present their products and services to the customers that come in. And Apple, by far away, blows away every other retailer by nearly every metric. This one, they're by far number one in sales per square foot, a key metric for retail stores, at 4,798. The closest to that is Tiffany, which it comes in around $3,000 per square feet. So not even close. And you think of all the other luxury retailers out there, and jewelers, watch companies, whatever. None of them come close. And on top of that, they have an 81% retention rate with their employees. So one way to get started on this: take any project that's important to you, that's going on in your company, and break it down into a smaller piece that can be owned by an autonomous team. Make sure that team has no more than 7 plus or minus 2 people. It's fine if it's smaller than that. Make that team multidisciplinary, making sure that they have all the necessary skills they need to deliver on whatever mission you've given them. Make sure that they have a clear timeline, that it should be testable. Whatever it is that they're responsible for should be testable within 3 months or less. Again, if it's smaller, even better. If it's a 1 month increment or can break it down even smaller than that, great. And lastly, make sure that they're independent, that they're able to ship without external reviews or approvals. So that wraps it up for me. The last thing I want to say is this: we really do believe that embracing these new ways of working can substantively transform the way an organization operates and its ability to have an impact in the world. And we hope that you'll join our revolution and spread these ways of working yourselves. Thank you very much.